that is you're multiplying the number outside the parentheses by the numbers inside the parentheses. Yep. Yep. Right up here. Just leave me your shoe or your phone. That way I get them back. Okay. So all you're using is the distributive property. So all that is multiplying it out. So all we're doing today is still multiplication. Okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to give you something like this. So 9 times 4 1/3. So this one, they want you to break it down to make it easier for you. You're just breaking it down to a number that's easier. So if you had like 3 6/10, okay, you'd break it down to where you have 3 and that 0.6. It makes things a lot easier to work with. But these are the ones I want to show you down here. Okay. So when you have 2 times the parentheses of x plus 3, guys, all you're doing is 2 times x, 2 times 3. That's the distributive property. It's literally just taking that number outside and multiplying it by everything on the inside. Okay, so 2 times x would be 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. That's it. So let's jump over to page 489. We're going to do a couple of these. So number 1, okay, they want you to use these. You can basically do this in your head because we're going to break this up to where these are easier numbers using the distributive property. So since 9's being the number being multiplied, that goes on the outside of the parentheses like this. Okay, so that's our first part. Now, since they want you to solve this mentally, we have to break up 44 to an easier number. So what is a number that's easy, that's close to 44 that we could probably do in our head? Because we're going to add 2 numbers together. What were you going to say? Nope. Make it even easier than that. Because we're not dividing, we're multiplying. So we want to be able to do something quick in our heads. What is a number that's close to 40 or 44 that's going to be easy to work with? 40 and what? So if I'm breaking this up, if we take 40 away, how much do we have left? 4. So we do 40 plus 4. Now we solve this by doing the distributive property, but we can do this in our head. Because what's 9 times 40? Okay, what's 9 times 4? Put a 0 on the end. 360. Plus 9 times 4 was 36. Okay, so now, now we just add them. What's 360 plus 36? 396. So that's all they wanted you to do was just break it down. Now, these are the ones I want to worry about. Okay, this is when you have an expression, an algebraic expression, because we have a variable. So once again, when you have a number outside the parentheses like this, all you're doing is multiplying it out. So 8 times x and then 8 times 7. So 8 times x is what? 8x. Plus, now don't forget the second one. What's 8 times 7? 56. Now, we can't go any further than that because we don't know what x equals. So you're done. That's your answer. That is how you use the distributive property. You're just multiply these numbers out. So number 5, same thing. We do 6 times 11 and 6 times x. So what's 6 times 11? 66. We keep the addition sign, and what's 6 times x? 6x. And that's it. You're done. That's as far as you can go. Okay, so that's all we're doing with the distributive property. So let's go back, and I want you guys to do, nope, we're going to do D and E. D and E down at the bottom of page 486. D and E, just DE. Take your time, write them out if you have to. Okay, so letter D, we have 8 times the parentheses of x plus 3. So remember, with the distributive property, you're just technically taking that 8 and multiplying it to both of these terms on the inside. So what do we do first, Isabella? Okay, so we do 8 times x, which is 8x. Keep the addition sign. And then what do we do now? So we do 8 times 3 and we get 24. 8x plus 24. That's it. You're done. Okay, you solved it as far out as it can go because we don't know what x equals. Okay, letter E, same thing. We're doing 5 times the number on the inside, 5 times the other one. So 5 times 9, 45 plus 5x. So keep it in the same order that they write it in. If they put the number first, you put the number first. If they put the variable first, put the variable first. Keep it in the same order. Okay, any questions on this so far? Any questions on this? So that's the distributive property. Now we're going to go the opposite way. And that's what they call factor an expression. So when you're factoring, you're taking a number that you can divide out of both of them and putting it on the outside of the parentheses. So they give you an expression like this, 12 plus 8. You have to find the greatest common factor and divide it out. So remember, greatest common factor is when you list them out like this. So if 12 would be, we have 1 and 12. That's 2 going to 12. Yeah, 2 times what? 6. That's 3 going to 12. Yeah, 3 times what? 4. And you're basically done. Those are all the factors of 12. Then you do the same thing for 8. You have 1, 8. That's 2 going to 8. Yeah, 2 times what? That's 3. And we're back at 4, so we're done. So the ones that match are 1, 2, and 4. So the greatest common factor would be 4. So we're going to take a 4 out. 4 goes on the outside of the parentheses now. Okay, then you divide, not multiply, since we're working the opposite way. So what's 12 divided by 4? 3. Plus, what's 8 divided by 4?
2.
And there's your answer. That's how you factor. You go the opposite way. So before we used the distributive property and we multiplied those two numbers. What was 4 times 3? 12. What's 4 times 2? So there's 12 plus 8. Okay, so that's basically what you're doing is we're working backwards now. So we're going the opposite way. So let's go back over to page 489 again. We're going to do some more of these. Okay, number 8. 8 plus 16. So your first job here is to find the greatest common factor and factor it out. So what is going to be the greatest common factor for 8 and 16?
4.
Is that the greatest?
Wait, no, 8.
8. So remember, it has to work for both of them. 16 wouldn't work for 8 because 8's maxed out. So 8 would be your greatest common factor. So that's what you're taking away. That's what goes on the outside. So 8 goes automatically outside the parentheses. So as soon as you figure out your greatest common factor, you pull that out, put it outside the parentheses. Now we work down the line to divide it out. What's 8 divided by 8?
1.
1. We keep our addition sign, and then 16 divided by 8. And there's your answer. 8 times parentheses, 1 plus 2. You can't do any further than that because that's factoring. Okay? Don't solve it because then basically you're back at square one. This is how you factor. Now, this is where they start throwing the variables at you. It doesn't change anything. You still have to find the greatest common factor. So, what is the greatest common factor of 11 and 55? What was it? 11. Okay, so 11 is going to be it. So I take that. That goes outside the parentheses. Now we work on dividing it out. What's 11x divided by 11? Just x. Good. So whenever you have a variable like that and you divided that out, all that's left over is x because 11 divided by 11 is 1. They cancel each other out. Keep the addition. What's 55 divided by 11? 5. So that's all you have to do. So rather than multiplying, we're now dividing. Okay, so let's go back. And I want you guys to do, where'd they go? I lied. We're going to go back to this page, and you guys are going to do 2, 3, 5, 6. I'll give you a few minutes. Take your time. Write them out if you have to. Read the directions. 2 and 3 are using the distributive property. 5 and 6 are doing the factoring. Take your time. They have questions. So number 2. Okay, they want us to use the distributive property. So remember, 3 times the first one, 3 times the second one. So what's 3 times x? 3x plus, what's 3 times 1? 3. And you're done. That's it. Okay, that's as far as you can go. Now the second or third, or number 3, I mean. So we do 5 times the first one, 5 times the second one. So what's 5 times x? 5x plus, what's 5 times 8? 40. And that's it. Any questions on those two? That's the distributive property. Now, 5 and 6, we're going the opposite way. We are going to be doing factoring. So when you factor, you're taking a number out that works for both of them. So what is the greatest common factor for 25 and 60? 5. Okay, so 5 goes on the outside. Now we divide. So what's 25 divided by 5? 5. Plus, what's 60 divided by 5? 12. And that's your final answer. 5 times the parentheses of 5 plus 12. So when you're factoring, you do the opposite and you divide. So number 6, 4x plus 40. So what's our greatest common factor here? 4. So we put 4 on the outside of the parentheses. Okay, now we divide it out. What's 4x divided by 4? Just x. Plus, because we keep the addition, what's 40 divided by 4? 10. And that's it. There's your answer. Any questions on this? So just remember, when you're doing these, distributive property means to multiply. When you factor, you're doing division. All right, so your homework today is on IXL, 6th grade math, section Y, number 13, and Y14. You have plenty of time. You should be able to get these done. Now, 13, that's when you're distributing property. 14 is when you're factoring. So one's the distributive property when you multiply. The other one's when you're factoring and you divide. Take your time.